Okay, good morning. Today is Wednesday, October 20th, class 13. Today in class, we're going to have a quick discussion in the morning about what's going on with the project, and then we're going to go over some new stuff today. Basically, what's going to happen today, now, as typical in a schematic design phase, is that what we're in right now, last day of schematic design phase, where we're kind of getting the gist of our design ideas down, where we can move into design development and really kind of work on them for the next 2 weeks. The client has thrown in a new monkey wrench. So we have something new to consider in our project today. The client wants to incorporate a curtain wall into this project. And then it'll just be specifically, the main idea is to put it around the where the staircase is, but we are open to incorporating different curtain walls into different aspects of the building. What is a curtain wall, you might ask? Well, a curtain wall is, think about the building or the building that's on Louisa Street. What is that campus name? I haven't been out there so long. With that big curved wall of glass. That's pretty much a curtain wall. So let's I'm gonna look it up real quick for some examples. Curtain wall doesn't sound like it's anything like super structural, but it actually is a very structural part of the building. When you're looking at a curtain wall, you're looking at something like this, where it's the supporting elements are these rods that run either way, the building blocks, the window, and then the windows are kind of attached to them as part of it. So the windows are not structural, but it's actually the rods and the mullions that are giving you the strength in this window. This is a good example of it here too. So this is what we're going to be creating inside the space that we already have, is a curtain wall, something like this. So you can see that it's basically mostly windows with the supporting elements as the design aspects, and you can incorporate those any way you want. So we're going to take a look at how to create this and how to add this into our building today. So we need to think of, not curtains, curtain wall. So this is what we're going to learn how to do today. We're going to go into where you're actually going to, the minimum requirement for that curtain wall would be, and then you can kind of take that element and you can work that into your design for the rest of the building any which way you'd like to. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the curtain wall exercise for this morning. So today, we're going to be going over curtain walls. How do we create those is with the curtain wall tool, curtain grid, the mullions tool, and then also we're going to learn how to edit those today. So it's all basically just around curtain walls and how to incorporate them. And actually, I think curtain walls are actually pretty fun, and they can add some really interesting elements to your project. So let's go ahead and run through that now. Get back to Revit. Okay, here's that one building that I've been working on. Been kind of playing with this one, kind of going forward. Let me go ahead and attach these walls. Okay, so if we take a level 1 view, go there. This is basically where we want to incorporate our curtain wall. In this area here and here, to kind of show off this corner and kind of show off our staircase on the inside of it. So that's the minimum requirement. So how do we start adding a curtain wall in here? Excuse me, all my allergies are still terrible. We go to floor plan level 1. So we're going to start on level 1, and we're going to go up to architecture tab, and we're going to start with our wall tool. So we'll click on wall tool, and then we'll go to our type selector, and do drop down there. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, there's different types, but we're going to default to our regular curtain wall 1, which is going to allow us to like play with it a little bit more than the others do. So let's select curtain wall 1. You have to already have a regular wall in place in order to create this curtain wall. So I'm just going to bring it in over here. Notice how that center location line is already popping up for me to draw that on there. And then I already have my temporary dimensions kind of showing up where I want that to be. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to draw that in a space right here. So this is giving me this arrow saying highlighted walls overlap. Usually people are like, okay, whatever. And then we just keep drawing. And we have the arrow again, like, okay. Most of the time people ignore that. And let's jump to 3D and see what happened. Well, it looks like nothing happened. So this is where people freak out, wonder what happened to the curtain wall. But the curtain wall comes in at a default where you actually have to correct a setting on it. So what we can do to find that curtain wall now is go ahead and hide this wall. Oops, wrong one. This is the curtain wall right here. This is how it's going to come in and look like this. So it's just like basically like a sheet of glass right now. So, but it's not showing up in our wall. So what we have to do is click on it, make it active, go into edit type. And as is typical with Revit, there's just one little box we have to click to change everything. And this is automatically embedded. So now it's going to show up when I go back to OK. And I turn this, reset this. So there is my curtain wall now. Let's flip it around. There's my curtain wall in the back as well. So you have to remember to always, when you put in your curtain wall, put automatically embed in order for it to do it, or it's not going to show up when you input it. So we've got this one in this one space right here, but it's probably not great. What I want is a curtain wall that kind of shows off the entire set corner of this here. So just like we manipulate all of our other walls, we want to go ahead and click on the curtain wall section, make it active. Come over to our properties. Notice in our properties that is a top constraint. It sets 20 feet. Here's where I can change it to either align with my level 4 or higher, but then I don't really want to do that either. So I'm just going to actually set this to 30 feet and see where that lands me. And that looks like it should be right, but let's hide the roof and see how it looks. So I have no support up here where this goes. We could come back and put in some curtain grids later, which we'll, and some mullions, which is the supporting feature. We can do that, but I actually want to have this kind of topped off with some brick. And this is just a design element that I have. You can change it the way you want to. So I'm going to actually keep that highlighted, and I'm going to bring that down to 29 feet. 6 inches. So notice that put 2 more rows of brick in there that I like. I still need to put mullions around here as supporting element, but it just kind of finishes it off kind of nicely there. Plus, when we put our roof back on, it covers up that space anyway. I could even go down a little bit more. So why do I want to have that curtain element there when all it would be doing is looking at the roof? So let's swing over here to this one and change the height of this one. There we go. On this one, I just want to see a comparison. So I'm going to make this one 29. I'm gonna make this one 29 foot and see what the difference is. I hit apply. Actually, I think the 29 foot looks a little bit better. Let's hide this again. So, yeah, I'm gonna switch that to 29 foot as well. And this is just a visual choice. So, inputting your curtain wall and adjusting height and stuff, it's pretty easy, typical to what we usually do. But how do we get to a point where we can make these cool mullions and cool designs on that curtain wall? Well, in order to do that, let's go to a side view. The first thing you want to do is to create a curtain grid. So we're going to use the curtain grid tool on here, and consider the curtain grid. It's kind of like almost etching the glass to where you want your grid to go. So notice how when I come in here, I've got location lines kind of popping up already where I want them to. And that's going to cut all the way through there. In fact, let me do something. Let me do something separate so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So here's just a wall section. Let me make that too big. I'll go back to my wall again, and I'll pick that curtain wall. I'll go ahead and insert that here. Now let's jump to 3D in this section. All right, so here's an example of our curtain wall. And notice it, since I already clicked automatically embed, it showed up right away when I imported it. So here's where we're going to start adding our curtain grid. And remember, it's kind of like sketching a glass, how you want the pattern to look. So click on curtain grid. And you just need to click. You don't need to drag it in place. It's going to go where it wants to. I mean, it's going to cut across the entire pane of glass like that. If you don't want it to cut across the entire pane of glass, notice it does a defaults to all segments. If you just want to do one segment, you can click on one segment as well. And here, now it's going to pick just one segment of glass. So this is like the beginning of our basic curtain wall. Let's zoom in and take a kind of look at it. This is what I mean by it just kind of etches it. It just kind of gives you the pattern. This is the pattern that you're going to create in order to start the curtain wall. So it starts with the grid, and then the next step is to go to the mullion tool, and that's going to add those vertical or horizontal elements, the structural elements. Obviously, this is just for the model itself. If we were going to actually create construction documents, you would have some very detailed documents of how this how this curtain grid would be constructed. But just for the element that we need right now, this is what we use to create this. So we can do grid lines. You can do a grid line segment, or you can do all grid lines. There's other reasons that you would be using these. It's just as easy just to go ahead and pop in all grid lines at once. Sometimes people like to do certain grid line segments just to see how their design's coming out, and you can change that, manipulate it. But mostly when people get started, they just use all grid lines. And as you kind of play with it and get comfortable with it, then you can determine which way you can do it. But know that you can add a single line or just a grid line or a segment. All right, so now we have the beginnings of our curtain wall. Hey, are y'all still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks. I'm still having internet issues, so I think it kind of blacked out for a second. Okay, back to where we were. So when you kind of lay out your initial curtain grid and then add the mullions, sometimes you may not like the way it looks and you want to edit it and you want to change the way that your curtain wall is laid out. So we can go ahead and learn how to edit that as well. So the first thing you need to do in order to get rid of a curtain wall section is we highlight the section of the wall that you want to get rid of and you just hit delete. But notice it's just that section. It's not the entire line. It's just that section of wall. And now it just still leaves me with this curtain grid.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, thank you. It must reset everything when it hit the... Where are y'all? We good? Can you
Yes.
see? Okay, thank you. Awesome, thanks. So if you don't like the way the grid is laid out, you can't change that once you do your initial design. Here I went ahead and I just did, I deleted that one mullion right there. Oh, let's forward one more. So if you want to change up your curtain grid and change the way the designs look, you need to delete the mullion first. So I'm going to highlight this mullion and then I'm just going to hit delete. But that'll still leave me with the curtain grid in place. So I need to get rid of the curtain grid now. So I'm going to click on the curtain grid and we go up to the ribbon. It says add or remove segments. Sometimes honestly, this part gets a little, this is probably the most frustrating part, trying to add or remove these segments. Did it work there? Still didn't. There. Oh, it came back. There it goes. Okay, so it is a little frustrating, it takes a little practice on that one, but you can just remove that segment. So just remove that segment of the curtain grid and I have something like this. So what I would suggest to do before you start trying to incorporate this into your actual building is do this exercise on your own and do a separate wall and just kind of play with the curtain grid and manipulate it and stuff like that before you start incorporating it, the complete design into your model itself. So let's play with this a little bit more and kind of see how we can manipulate it. I'm going to go ahead and delete this curtain grid, this mullion, and I'll delete this curtain grid, highlight that. It really is the most frustrating thing on here. There we go. Once I have those deleted, if I want, I can go back and add a couple of different ones. So now I'll go back to my curtain grid tool and I'm just going to add one segment on these now. I'm going to add a segment right here. And just like you did with your other temporary dimensions, you notice you can change these dimension-wise here as well. So if I wanted that to be 5 foot, that could be exactly 5 foot. If I go back and click on this one, and I wanted this to actually be like 2 foot, I can change that there as well. But notice when I change that